On today's episode, I spoke with Adam Caplan. Adam runs Toronto Top Team, a jiu-jitsu and MMA gym in Toronto, Canada. Earlier this year, I competed at IBJJF Pans, and Adam was the number one seed in my age, weight, and belt bracket. He beat me by points and ended up getting second place. After the match, we had a casual conversation and exchanged Instagram profiles. I've now run into him at several other competitions, and he's done 12 or so this year alone. But we haven't competed against each other again because he got promoted to purple belt. In this episode, we spoke about Adam's path to jiu-jitsu, competitor mindset, coaching, dealing with losses, and many other topics on personal growth. Why does any of this matter? And more importantly, why should you listen? Well, if you're doing any competitive sport, or even if you're just a casual hobbyist, it's easy to feel anxious and beat yourself up for not performing up to your own expectations. What you'll discover here is that it's not about winning or losing, it's about showing up the best way you can to every game you get invited to. We dive pretty deep into psychology of competing and preparation and realistic goal setting. Ultimately, no matter where you are in your personal or professional growth, the only proper path is forward. Enjoy. Adam, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I know this is your first one, but this isn't your first pressure sensitive event because you compete a lot, and there's a lot of pressure in all of that, and so I think this is gonna go just fine. No pressure.
I certainly hope so. Yeah, like one of my actually, it's kind of funny. I tell my kids that I teach every day. I don't like public speaking. I don't actually like this actually creates more anxiety than fighting for me.
Seriously?
It really does. It's
Uh-huh.
not something. It's not one of my strong suits, but I actually work that into my classes as well with the kids. It's just like I get them to public speak. I get them to help me display things just so it's easier. But yeah, no, this it's a different type of pressure, and I always like pressure, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting you mentioned the public speaking thing because I think many people, unless they're, fairly conceited, don't like public speaking in general. I, after I listen to these episodes, after I record them, I actually hate my own voice, but I think it's for everybody. Everybody doesn't like their own voice and how they look. So that just proves that we're like more normal than all the conceited people out there who like to hear themselves speak. So good for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's funny you mentioned that about the voice too, because the way that we sound in our head is not the way that we sound to people. So 100%, like the way that you think you sound and then you listen to your voice recorded, it's different. It is. So it's, at least for me, it's shocking. Sometimes I have to like re-record stuff. I'm like, do I really sound like that?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think when others hear you, because I've been given feedback about these episodes that I record, and people
Yep.
always like them. I'm like, how can you guys like them? Like, I sound like shit. I got an accent. I say stupid things. I probably look weird, and it's like, what the hell? But people listen and they watch and they comment, and so sounds like we're doing something right.
Yep. I agree.
And it's actually very similar to competition because after you watch the footage, and I watch my footage all the time just so I can get better, like, I don't fucking like the way I look. Like it always looks better in your head when you're fighting than when you're watching it afterwards. You're like awkward and like nothing's pretty. And so I don't know if you have the same problem.
So the problem I have is I do not tape my matches for the most part.
Hmm.
I'm not good at doing that. I've just started to now, and that's the luxury of like that's why I like fighting IBJJF and
Hmm.
those events because they have them on YouTube, and like so I do get matches and stuff like that. But locally, I'm actually very bad because it's part of my anxiety. So like part of my anxiety is there. Like I don't think to ask someone to record sometimes. So then I'm like the pressure of me just having to set the thing up. I don't even want to deal with it. I'm there to fight, and so like I go to get it done, and then I trust in my coaches as well. So
Hmm.
and the people that are coaching me during to give me accurate feedback. So it's just like I don't always need to watch the match. If someone, like my coaches have been up until now been able to be like, all right, this is what you did wrong. This is what we're gonna work. And um I put that right. Like one thing that I like to do is I work on my mistakes right away, or anything that I'm doing, I try to put into practice right away. So if I make a mistake on Monday, like at a tournament, and Monday morning, I'm working on fixing that mistake right.
Mm,
That's my prime goal at that point. So I get the feedback from my coaches. They tell me, okay, you know what, you did this and this. Like you got to, like for instance, when I fought at the Toronto Open, I was winning 5-0, and I wasn't controlling the guy's legs. He was able to end up finally standing back up, and then he pulled guard again, and I ended up getting triangled. And it's I was winning 4 minutes and 30 seconds of the match, and I got lackadaisic, and I made a mistake. And so right away, my coach, he's like, "This is what you did." And
mm,
so the following Monday, all right, like I'm not letting my arm get extended. It was like I was playing tug of. Once I get tired, rather than have good body position, I let there be like a tug of war with my
mm,
arms, and so instead of having my arm tucked into my knee, I let him getting extended. He shot his legs up, and
mm.
it was that's the way it works. So, but yeah, I now that I do watch my footage sometimes, I actually, yeah, I don't like it. I don't. I think that, yeah, I think that in my head I'm better than I actually look.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, oh, I'm making mistakes here. I'm making mistakes there. You know what? If I just held this a little bit longer and was patient and didn't try to rush. So
Now, is there a reoccurring mistake that over and over you're getting? Because if I remember correctly, even at Pans, you beat me, and then you beat another guy, and then you got triangled. So I don't know if triangle is like
it
your main issue here, because you mentioned triangle yourself.
so it's funny that you bring that up, because I actually like tout myself on the fact that like when I make a mistake, I can fix it right away. For whatever reason, the triangle is my nemesis.
Hmm.
I've been triangled. Um, I'm thinking 2 times. The third time I was able to like hold off, and then he transitioned to an armbar, and I
Hmm.
got the finish. And then another time I got out of the triangle, and then I ended up getting disqualified by a referee's bad decision.
Hmm.
He said that I grabbed, like he was not in the right, like I understand what he saw. But I actually, the my competitor, his girlfriend videotaped the fight, so I was able to see after. And so he thought I grabbed inside the pants
Oh.
while he was going for an armbar. So like it's a penalty during a finishing maneuver, so it's an automatic disqualification.
Hmm.
But like from the video, you see that as soon as I let go, that I just grabbed the bottom of the pants, and it is just from his angle, unfortunately. But yeah, no, triangles definitely um, are something I need to work on. I do the wrong thing. I do like what you should do in nogi.
Uh-huh.
I try to pull out quickly,
Hmm.
and like it works sometimes, but in the gi, at least what I found and what I see as successful is like more pressure, heavy, 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 and then like try to weight it and try to like move a little bit. But it was funny. The last time I got triangled, this is gonna sound horrible, but the last time I got triangled, I was actually showing the kids competition class that morning
Hmm.
how to defend a triangle.
That's funny.
So like, and they said to me, they're like, "Did you try it?" And I'm like, "I didn't have a chance. Like I didn't." But it was just so it was funny that like I'm just like, really, I was just showing this morning, and that actually happened to me twice now, where I've shown something, and then I've actually like my competitor was able to do it better, and I got caught. So
Yeah. Just because you know how to do it doesn't mean you're like immune to it.
yep, but
And it's strange too, because like at our size and at our weight, like I tend to see guys who are actually closer to like me. They're like 5'6" through 5'8", sort of short and stocky. And I
yep,
think you're kind of in the same range, right? You're not super
yeah,
tall and lean.
no, no,
And so triangle tends to be a move done by dudes with long legs. Like I don't do triangles, I do omoplatas.
yeah.
And I don't do arm bars from close guard either, because it's just like you need long legs and you need sort of a lean body.
Yeah. So it's funny because the guy in the final, like I don't. he was tall and lean. So
Mm.
I used to fight when I originally started jiu-jitsu and started competing. I fought at lightweight. Like
Mm.
I was like 175 pounds when I wanted to compete, and I did a horrible first weight cut by myself. I literally the morning of the fight, I had to do 3 hot baths of 20
Mm.
minutes in, 20 minutes out just to get to weight. I drove to the I almost had to pull over on the way to the arena because I was like not
Dehydrated.
yeah,
Yeah.
so dehydrated. I was like feeling dizzy. And so after that, I'm like, no, I don't want to cut weight anymore. And so I stayed down at like 164, which was the 168. But then as I started training more, I naturally started dropping weight. And so then I was like 160,
Mm.
158. But then I still didn't want to cut weight to featherweight because I told myself that I wasn't going to cut weight. I didn't feel good. So
Mm.
I fought at lightweight for about 8 months as I naturally cut down to featherweight until I got all the way down there. So there was times that I was giving up 10 pounds in the fight easily. Like
Yeah, for sure.
I would weigh in at 158 pounds in the gi or 157 pounds in the gi and still be fighting lightweight. And sometimes I even had to because of the area.
Right.
I'm fighting adults at lightweight. So when I moved down, that's I wanted to get away from the tall, lean guys. That's what I
Right.
thought. That's what I thought. And then yeah, the guy at Pans was tall and lean. I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, how do you even make this weight? Like, I don't.
Yeah, it's crazy. And actually, if you go away from IBJJF and you go into like all these other competitions, it's that fucking weight class is weird, and age is also like not existent. Because I fought like 17-year-olds. I fought dudes that were like clearly 180 and above. You know, almost like double my size, and you almost like step on the scale, and they're like, good enough. It's like I'm like, should I take my shoes off? Like, am I on weight? And he's like, don't fucking worry about it. Just go.
There is unfortunately some tournaments like that, and like I've heard people complain like about that, and I know certain I've seen it happen. Unfortunately, like it's just like it is what it is. Unfortunately, in the local scene, sometimes you like because it's you know what, it's not just in jiu-jitsu, it's always who you know, not what you know.
For
So
sure.
so like yeah, so unfortunately sometimes that does happen. I've never had something to that extreme where it's like 180. Normally it's like, okay, you're over by a pound or two,
Right.
we're gonna forgive you, like not just take your money
Yeah.
type thing. But yeah, no, it's yeah.
Yeah. And so you compete a lot. I mean, I remember again when I was doing pans and I was looking up my opponents, and you were basically the number one seed. And I think I found you on Instagram. I was like, oh, fuck, all this dude does is like compete. And so how many tournaments did you do last year or this year?
So I you know what, that's a pretty good question. I don't I
More than 10.
more so I can say like probably like 12.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
because
that,
there's some times that it would be like, so for instance, like Pans, I think that month there was Miami Open and Pans, or like, and then I do local events as well, right?
mm,
So like there's some times where like I think at one point, even it was last year, I had 3 events in a row, like 3 weekends in a row, back to back to back.
damn.
And so I love to fight. Like I always, when I was younger or whatever, I was always fighting. I wish I found jujitsu a lot earlier in life. It would have My life could have been a million times. It would have been a million times different if I would have found it a lot earlier. I'm glad to have it now, but yeah, like I grew up fighting, so this was kind of like once I cleaned my act up with other things, and I found my way to the gym as the manager. It was just like, all right, start training, and
Hmm.
then yeah, it was just from there. And then
Just
yeah,
you're talking about like martial arts fighting or like street fighting shit?
street fighting.
Okay.
I was
You grew up in Canada?
I grew up in Canada, yeah, in like a small town, so I was like fighting I fought almost like every weekend for like 3 years in a row, like just
Mm-hmm.
stupid bar fights and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah, so
And and then you ended up in jiu-jitsu at some point.
I yeah, so like it was a long path. So like there was like it started off like that, and then there was like drugs and alcohol for a long time. I eventually got clean, so now it's going to be 5 years in January that I'm
Damn.
sober. So
Sober. Okay.
so yeah, so 5 years sober in January. And then yeah,
Congratulations.
Thank you. So it took me a long time. Like on it, like I'm 42. I feel like it took me a long time. Like I have a lot of regrets and unfortunately and stuff like that. That I think things were different. But jiu-jitsu definitely it saved my life. Like it's one of the two things that have saved my life. My father saved my life, and then
Hmm.
unfortunately, when my father passed last year, jiu-jitsu became my life. Because if I didn't have jiu-jitsu, like I don't know what I would have done. I would
Mm.
have, yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think everybody that I come across in jiu-jitsu kind of have a similar journey to some degree because there's either like a midlife crisis or a divorce, a death in the family, some form of something that brings people in because they're like searching for meaning and they're searching for purpose, and they're ready to kind of change your life. uh, and they end up, they walk through at 40 years old into a jiu-jitsu gym, sometimes a Muay Thai gym or boxing gym or something along those lines, because it's got to be something physical that takes like your mind away, because jiu-jitsu and I think martial arts are kind of so immediate that you have a hard time doing anything else at the same time as you're trying to defend the choke, for example. And so it essentially takes over an hour of your day, then all of a sudden takes over 2 hours of your day, and next thing you know you're fucking thinking about this thing like on your time off, and you can't wait to get back on the mats, immediately. And so next thing you know, you're like 7 days of jujitsu, and next thing you know, you're working there. Like, how the hell did that
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah. So yeah, I know. So it's funny you say that thing about the training, and my mind is always working. So like it's always busy. That's what I think I love about jiu-jitsu the most, is that you're 100% right. If you're not concentrating on that person choking you, you're going to get choked. So you have to I like the focus that jiu-jitsu brings. But as for me, like the way that I got the job, it was kind of random.
Hmm.
I worked in I took recreation facility management in school, so I
Hmm.
had a background running facilities, and then I ran a tennis club for 7.5 years, almost 8 years, and I was at a LA Fitness for 8 months.
This is in
Uh,
college or high school,
yeah,
or
this is like adult years. So this is like my adult years. Like I was a functional addict. Like I
I
was a
see.
function, yeah. So like, and I had good jobs. Like sorry if my dog's she's
No, it's
going.
all good.
Yeah, yeah. So so I yeah, so I had decent jobs, but it also gave me good experience.
Hmm.
So that when this job opportunity came around, I literally saw it on Indeed, which is like
Hmm.
a job posting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I talked to the owner. Me and the owner clicked, and he's just like, okay, and he hired me. And then I was hired on as the assistant manager. There was someone else that was in charge at the time.
And this is before
Uh,
you even started.
this is before I started training.
Okay.
Yeah, so like I was, yeah. So and then um yeah, and then I ended up issues happened with him, so he ended up leaving, and then I was just promoted to the manager, and then I've been doing that. So like I was hired on 2 weeks before COVID hit.
Hmm. Did you guys
So
close? Did the gym close? Because I imagine
uh,
Canada, and this is where we get into the non or the political stuff, the uh, non pretty stuff. Because that's the reason we actually moved away from Chicago. Like we were essentially in a liberal state, and at some point, our friends were asked to show vaccination cards for all the kids just to eat out. And they were, we looked at all that and we're like, fuck this, man. Everything's closed. We're leaving. And so we moved to Florida.
yeah, so unfortunately I wasn't like at this time my dad was sick and he was like in a retire like a nursing home essentially
Hmm. Hmm.
because he had Parkinson's, and so I had to stay around. I couldn't just leave. But
Right.
as for the gym, so we closed for 6 months. We listened to them for 6 months. After 6 months happened, the owner called me and he's like, Adam, go back in there and start opening things up. This is where I can like, yeah. So we were after the 6 month mark. We were basically, because we have a 2 floors in our facility, so we just trained downstairs. So like after
Mm,
the first 6 months, and the best thing about it is a lots of gyms didn't open.
I
So,
see.
so we had like the cream of the crop. So like the highest level of grapplers like in Ontario that were in the area that wanted to train, they knew where they could come and train, and they did.
That's awesome.
So it was like it was if the health department ever came in at one of those times, we would have been like, there was like an inch of water on the mat. So like there
Mhm.
was that, because they were doing no gi and gi, and it was just like, um, yeah, no, it was, we had to keep training, and they let us shut down for so long, and then eventually what ended up happening is they said we could reopen under like ridiculous a rule set, like 10 people a class. You have
Mhm.
to have
Six
markers
feet
on.
away or some
Yeah,
shit. One on
yeah. So
one. It was like all weird shit, right? I remember.
yeah, so there was like markers on the floor. But we actually held an in-house tournament during this time.
Oh, nice.
So we held like an in-house tournament of like black belts and above, and then we actually went to do it again, and I can't exactly remember. Something happened, and we had to cancel it.
Hmm.
But I posted it online, and we had some troll tag the local police department.
Hmm.
So the day of the tournament, the police didn't come, but we had 5 bylaw officers come to the gym.
Hmm.
Well, no one was there, but I could see on the camera the bylaw officers were there. So COVID definitely did like interfere a lot in like the actual business running, but as in for training, we were still training.
Yeah.
Like we were still training. We had guys that, because the IBJF was still running tournaments in some states
Right.
at a certain point. So the way that I kind of positioned it is we have, because in here, they have certain rules that like semi-professional athletes were allowed to continue to train. So like I'm the type of person is I'll play by the rules, but I want to understand all of the rules because I'm going to get your system to work for me.
Correct. I'll find a way around the rules for sure. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like, so, because, these rules are kind of arbitrary. None of them are rooted in anything, and they're just kind of a preference by the administration who has the power to ensure that they can go out and do their own shit while essentially there are no lines.
Yeah. No, that's crazy. So I actually had guys, they signed forms like, hey, you're part of this team to help this person compete. So like if anyone came in, it's like jiu-jitsu is a team, is you can't, it's an individual sport, as in you're fighting by yourself, but you can't train by yourself. You need a
Right.
team. You need a team. These people have given the written authorization. They
Hmm.
understand the risks and stuff like that. So
Essential workers. They were all essential workers.
yep.
It's
So
funny.
we never actually, so we didn't get in trouble. We never got caught. They never came.
Hmm.
Like they came once or twice, and I just didn't open the door. The one time we just sat inside. I'm just like, no, we're just,
Need a warrant. Come, yeah.
yeah,
Bring a warrant.
exactly.
Right.
Bring a warrant.
Right.
If you want to call a police officer and tell get him and bug him for this, then by all means.
Hmm.
So that was COVID definitely threw a kink in it, but we were as in like the business, as running a business. But yeah, we still kept training. It was good. Like a couple of the guys that were training in the room, they ended up winning worlds.
Oh wow.
Like it was maybe 2023, they won worlds. Both the husband and wife, I think they both
Awesome.
won worlds. So it was like, hey, at least all their hard work and like what we did helped contribute to like, yeah. So people were having success, right? So that was the goal, and that's why I was like, I don't even close the gym on holidays.
It's like anybody
Okay,
wants to come train, we're open.
100%.
I
Yeah.
see. And so you transitioned from kind of managing the facility to actual teaching. And so how did that, how did that go from just managing the facility and being part of business operations to training yourself and then to actually taking over some of the teaching?
So like, to be blunt, it was like a financial thing.
Hmm.
It's like I needed to, like, the way, because of COVID and everything and the way that things were, it's like we couldn't afford at that time
Hmm.
to. So that's I kind of just made it. I just ticked it as another one of my responsibilities as the manager, is to make sure. So I run like the kids classes and stuff, and like people don't like to do, like, it takes a different type of person to deal with like
It's
four to
hard, man. It's a
four to seven.
daycare. We literally just talked about it because a friend of mine, he's a brown belt at our place. And he's like, man, we're adding more kids classes. He's like, I fucking hate kids. And he actually likes kids. He's compared to me, like he likes kids.
Mhm.
And so he's like, man, these like 4-year-olds, it's crazy.
It is. But I'm old school, so
Uh-huh.
like I don't stand for like, I don't like, and I tell them sometimes too. It's like I'm glad parents don't videotape me, because like I'd be worried. I'd be like, oh, I'd go viral sometimes. Like
It's
I
like
really think,
100 burpees every 10 minutes.
I made them do 3 minutes of fast feet.
Mm,
3 minutes of fast feet. Every time I clap, they sprawl. And then I did 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 1 minute because they aggravated me. I'm just like, no, if you guys don't want to listen, you guys,
mm-hmm,
my favorite saying to them is, because I don't want to tell them they can't do stuff.
mm-hmm.
So I don't phrase it, hey, you can't, like, because it's a negative tone. So I tell them, hey, you guys have the ability and the capabilities of doing whatever you want. However, there are rules in place,
Mm-hmm.
and if whatever you want to do breaks those rules, understand that there are consequences.
Yeah.
And like, it sounds funny because even when I say it, that I have this kind of conversation with like a 4 and 5 year old, but I think that's very lacking in like just even like the older kids, because I deal with older kids as well. Is
Mm-hmm.
there's no real, they don't feel like there's a consequence to their actions. So when they misbehave, like when I was their age, if I misbehaved, I got smacked. Like I was grounded for 30 days. So
Yeah.
I think the discipline with the kids is like is good.
Do
Like
you see the difference in kind of how parents raise their kids now versus how you were raised? Because like to me, I went through the same kind of things. You know, my family's from the Soviet Union, and like that has its own connotations of discipline.
mhm.
And so it's like you understood consequences through action. It's like you fuck something up. There's shit behind that, you know?
Yep.
Now, even with my own kids, like I don't know, we're like maybe I'm just a soft parent. But it I think the way sort of the culture changed made things more softer. And so I think parents actually want more discipline. That's why they're putting them into places like jujitsu, so that they can compensate for things that parents have a hard time doing themselves. And so you become sort of the the instructor and the instructor,
So and like that's the funny because I also like that's what I tell the kids and the parents. I'm like, I don't want to just teach them jujitsu. Like I feel good about teaching them how to be a good person.
Mm-hmm.
Like even simple things like the boys don't know that ladies go like I just said like ladies go first. I'll hold the door, like just like simple little things like this that grew that were ingrained in me as just being a gentleman. Like they think is weird or like what why, and I'm like just because I said like I don't even have a reason. I'm just like because it's the right thing to do. So this is the way it is. The problem with parents just bringing them to like jujitsu or anything like that for the discipline is if the kids only see it there,
Mm. It's
then
hard to
that's
keep going. Yeah.
it's hard to keep going because they're like, okay, I got to be good for 1 hour and then I get to do whatever I want again. And so like the it's if the parents want to use that place as like a tool to help like change the direction of the how they're going to be dealing with the kids as well, then I think that's great. It's great. But like if you're just bringing your kid there to teach them jujitsu, like I see spoiled kids all the time, like in tournaments, like and they go running off the mat and they're screaming and it's like it's not even like that they're hurt, it's like they can't accept the loss and like
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and it's because I at least my opinion is that they probably never been told no or like that they're like that they've lost it before. Like I have a student and she's gonna hate me for saying this, but like when I fought in the first time she fought, like she saw me fight in a tournament. I said, I'm like, oh, do you want? She got excited. And I'm like, oh, do you want it? Like, do you want it? This is an adult, just to let you know, it's an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, like, her first question to me after she said she wanted to fight was, does she get a participation medal?
And come on, Canada.
And I'm just, and I'm just like, I'm like, you are talking to the wrong person. I'm like,
Yeah,
no, you don't. There's no participation medal. The participation medal you get is the good feeling you have inside for
it's
doing
right here.
something.
Yeah,
For
for
doing
sure.
something. If you win and you get a medal, that's the bonus.
Yeah.
But like it's the testing yourself to see what you have inside, to see if you can take the pressure. Like I tell people all the time, it's like you don't understand the difference between fighting in the gym and fighting in a tournament. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I can do 100 rounds in the gym and be okay, and then I can do 2 rounds in a tournament and be totally exhausted.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's not the same thing. It's
No,
like you get an adrenaline dump and then you're fighting for dear life, man. It's an actual fight. It's not it's not even an open mat roll.
no, you're literally fighting for your life. The only thing that's going to stop is something gets broken, you go to sleep, or you actually say that you want to stop, essentially, right? Like
Tap,
it's
you're
like
right.
you're tapping, right? Like there is a timer, don't get me wrong, there is a timer, but all that timer says could say to you is, okay, I'm going to be punished for the next 5 minutes, right? Like you could, if you're not looking at it properly, you could be looking at it like that, right?
Yeah, I'm
So
gonna try to survive in bottom side control for the next 3 minutes. It's
yeah.
like shit. Right.
Not fun.
Yeah. So, to kind of continue with the thought about discipline and all of that, do you feel, where do you think that comes from? Because, I think our generation kind of has that ingrained, and maybe I'm just thinking through my own lens. Maybe, it's kind of a Pareto distribution on all sides of it. I'm sure there's plenty of kids in current generation that are doing just fine with discipline and opening doors for women and ethics and all of that stuff. Maybe we're just not paying attention to it. But I feel like for our generation, that was kind of ingrained into it. Like, do you feel that the experience that you've gone through personally, fighting and sort of the living around the edges of society, um, has helped with that? Because for me, I feel that has. It's always been sort of a weird. And again, I don't come really from like a rough family or anything, but my experience as an immigrant, where my parents basically worked all the time and we sort of grew up on the street to some degree,
Mhm.
kind of taught values, and it's not necessarily bad values, but they're like values through essentially hard experiences.
So it's funny that because that gives me two thoughts. It does, like, because you know what, you learn if there are consequences to your actions when you're living like that and stuff like that, and you're experiencing and you're doing, like, yeah, like there's definite, like, you know what, you understand that there's going to be consequences to your actions. So, and then it also made, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. My dog woofed and lost my train of thought.
Two
But then
two two things you said.
yeah,
That's
no,
what.
two things. I was trying to think of the other thing. The other thing, she distracted me. So, but yeah, sorry. If I think about it, I'll come back to it.
Yeah, it's all it's all, it's all good.
But about the discipline being ingrained in us.
Not just discipline, but like ethics and values and sort of, because again, I think, these these values are a consequence of you physically. They're not learned through theory, they're learned through practice, in my opinion. You kind of have to have certain experiences where you either get knocked on your ass and you're forced to get up, or your back is against the wall and like you got to eat. And like, difficult, what do they say, hard times make strong people make good times make weak people, something along
We're
those lines.
and we're around weak people right now. So that's at least that's how I feel about it. There's lots of but I think it's like, because it's kind of funny because the people that are raising the kids are the people that are our age.
I
So
know.
it's like we had those things ingrained in us, so why aren't we ingraining them in others? And I think it's a combination of a few things. It's maybe we feel like things were so hard on us that we didn't deserve, so it's all about doing better. But our understanding of what better is
Mm-hmm.
might not be correct. So like I was grounded for 30 days. Like when I got grounded, it was like 30 solitary confinement, 30 days, and like no TV. It's like you wake up, you eat, you go to school, you come home, you go to your room, you come out to eat, and back to your room. And like that's the way it was. So like for me, would I want to do that to a child? So that taught me consequences.
Right, but see, that's weird, because you can make a claim that, if your parents are doing that, that might end with resentment towards the parents, but it never really did. Like, we kind
No.
of always understood that, like, the shit's necessary, right? For my own sake. And I don't know if we understood it right away, but at a certain point, it just kind of clicked, where you're like, I don't hate him. Like, I like him. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no, 100%. But like, it just comes like I just think that parents don't want to maybe get their and have their kids endure what they endured, but they're not realizing it, that what they endured gave them the ethics and the response, like they're just the way that they think, right? So it's like, yes, it's a negative, but it's a necessary negative
Hmm.
because they need to learn. Like, how else are you going to learn? Like, if you keep just asking for something and all you do is you get it, you're just going to keep asking for it, right? So,
For
um,
sure. Yeah, and I think there's another angle to this that maybe we're not considering because like for me, for example, like when we came to the States in the 90s, a lot of the things weren't done because we couldn't afford them or we couldn't do them because of essentially lack of abilities. And so you had to turn the lights off because that was a fucking bigger bill. You had to drive a shittier car because that's your budget. And as these sort of children of immigrants to some degree, or even our current generation of children are now parents, we have a lot more abilities, and it's much harder to say no, especially through the lens of you can rather than through the lens of you can't. And so I think you have to start working out those values within yourself to be able to say no in a way of, we don't do that in this family because that's not what our values are, rather than don't fucking do it because we can't afford it. Like that's a much easier no, in my opinion.
yeah, yeah. So like that is, yeah, no. It's weird because like I have kids that are like, some of the kids are like, I know that they're aware of financial situations and stuff, and so they're not a burden to their parents. So like,
Mm-hmm.
I have kids where I'm like, hey, do you want to compete in a tournament? And like, whether they want to or not, they tell me no
Because they can't
because
afford it.
they can't afford it. And so where there's other kids that are just like, whether they know or not, whether they have money or not, it's want. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's a lot of society in general is, we live on our wants, not on our needs. So I think that's kind of where that goes, and so we've unfortunately taught our kids that that's okay, right? It's like it's okay to want things, but it's an understand is you need to take care of your needs first, and then if you have extra, that's when the wants come in to
Yeah, for
play.
sure. Do a lot of kids compete in your school? Like, are you guys basically a competition school?
I'm trying to be.
Oh.
Like we like so like recently we've changed head coaches. Like our head coach left. He had some personal things that he was taking
Mm-hmm.
care of, helping his dad. His dad was doing politics in Brazil and stuff, and he's like,
Mm.
oh, well, currently that's what they're involved in. So wasn't able to dedicate enough time to us. But his sister actually took over, and his sister is like ranked number 3 in the world at black
Oh
belt
wow.
at open weight for master. She's a master 1, but she's like, oh yeah, she got like the silver at like the last world. She got the second place medal for her thing, and it was just because she missed one event. If she would have went to
Mm.
that event, she would have been first. So I'm trying to get more of a competition team again. We had a lot of competitors, but because of issues in the gym, it kind of fell off a little bit. But like for instance, I had I think 13 or 15 or 16 registrations the last tournament that we went to, so that's a good showing for us. And then I just want to keep building from there. Like I want the kids, I don't want to force them to compete, but we do have some like, we have a core of kids that always compete
Mm-hmm. And
and
then
they do well.
an adult, same thing. You guys kind of have a core group because I see you at basically all the tournaments I go to, and then I see like the same guys that you come along with at all the tournaments. There's probably like two or three guys that like from your team that are at all the tournaments.
So like we're part, like that's where it's kind of like, that's where it's a fantastic thing that I actually enjoy. Um the guys that you usually see me with, except for one of them, they're not even from my gym. So
Oh,
we're part of like Cicero Costa.
okay. So
So
are you? So Toronto Top Team is affiliated through like another team, or like
yeah.
what's the dynamic?
So like Toronto Top Team's like affiliated to Action Reaction MMA,
Hmm.
which is the headquarters for Cicero Costa Canada.
Hmm.
So that's how we have our affiliation to Cicero Costa, is through Action Reaction. And that's like, if you see me post pictures or something like that, that's the competition room that I'm training in, and stuff like that. So I'm those are the guys that I'm training with
God, because
and
I
stuff.
couldn't tell. You got like three logos on the back of your gi, so I'm like, I don't know who you fight under now.
So, so it's kind of funny because I know what, I hate social media and I hate all that type of stuff because I always feel like I leave someone out. And the worst thing I have, like, one thing I always know is like, you don't want to ever slight someone. when you slight someone, that's something that's like an unforgivable thing. They'll never forgive you. They'll never forget about it. And so like I always feel bad when I'm tagging and this and that. I'm like I leave people out. But for the actual stuff on my gi, so I have my team, which is well
Mm-hmm.
the gym. I have my first coach, which
Mm-hmm.
is like Mo Kyber, which Igor Morkyber.
Mm-hmm.
So he was my first coach at Top Team. And got me like excited and interested into it, and like I still talk to him all the time,
And
and
that's
he
the guy
helps
that
me.
left.
No. So that then he actually brought in Breno
Mm-hmm.
Demirier, I guess. And so he was there for basically all through COVID, and he's the one that just recently left.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, so I have those two logos on mine, and then I have what else do I have? I
I
have
think
four.
I think you have that
There.
Cicero.
Okay, so then I had sorry, no, then I have it's a Breno, so Breno's father's patch. So that
Mm-hmm.
Brenano Cicero Costa, so it's like a Cicero Costa patch, but it's
Mm-hmm.
for his father. His
Got it.
father has a gym in Brazil, so that's the one patch. Then it's Breno, then it's Igor, and then it's my gym.
Okay. So it's Brazilian Ren.
Yes,
Okay. Got
yeah.
it. How big is that place? How many people you guys got there?
We have just over 200 right now.
Okay, like active or just
200. Oh, so that's 200 members total for but our jiu-jitsu is the biggest program that we have. So if like as in for jiu-jitsu, there's probably like 100 and probably 140 of the people are jiu-jitsu out of
night
the
class
200.
mostly or day class?
We have mostly night classes. I do the day classes, or sorry, the morning classes. So they're at 6:30 in the morning. That's actually starting to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I actually like some of the people that were doing the night classes. They were kind of talked it like they came to the morning just because like they like the attention I gave them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's yeah. So like in the evenings and stuff, because the classes are bigger and because of other dynamics that were going on, some of the students felt left out, and so they actually migrated to my class in the morning just because I pay attention to everyone and like they like my coaching style and stuff.
Is that a
And
fun?
so I'm
Is that a fundamentals class?
yeah, it's a beginner's class.
Okay.
Um, but I have new guys that join all the time, and it was like I had a speech today because like I get frustrated, um, and because I forget that it's taken me this long to be able to do the things that I do, and then like I see people doing like the same mistake, and some people just can't fix their mistake as quick as I, and so I had to talk, and I talked to him this morning, and I'm just like, hey guys, I'm like, just so you know, like if you hear like my voice change or something like that, I'm like, I am frustrated, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, it's not a frustration with you, it's a frustration with me. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I think bad of myself because if I think you should be able to do that, I'm like, you can't do that on your own. And if you're not able to do it, then it's my fault. So then I put the pressure back on myself and I'm just like, hey, so just because I don't want them to, because I am a vocal coach and I am sometimes like, if I see you make them, I'm like, oh, damn it. Like, what are you like, again? Like, and it's just like, I don't want them to feel discouraged. And so
Mm-hmm.
like, I always need to bring back like, hey guys, like this is what it is. But as of today, I told them we're doing like basic beginner stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
how to pull guard, like a basic mount escape, like just basic stuff because like some of the guys have trouble like with a crossface.
Mm-hmm.
Like and I'm like, if you don't know how to do a crossface, like I'm a failure. Like like that's the way I feel, right? So like
Right.
I and it's I started teaching fancy moves and I went away. Like originally my core was I'm like, I'm not gonna teach you fancy stuff because if you don't know how to get there, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if I show you a sweep from single leg X or an ankle
If you
lock
can't
or
get
something.
there,
If
right.
you can't get there, then it doesn't matter, right?
Right.
So I told them as of today, we're going like back to the basics. It's going to be like working on grips and like I've been watching a lot of how other people do classes with adults and with kids, and I was starting to do stuff that I was actually personally against,
Mm-hmm.
like showing stuff and doing stuff to keep people entertained rather than teach them jujitsu.
Mm.
If that makes sense,
It
right?
does.
Like so people are like, oh yeah, you arm dragged him, took his back, and you choked him out. Well, like if you can't pull guard, you're never gonna get there.
Right. Right.
So like it's yeah. So I was starting to do that, and then so yeah, it brought me today was like a wake up moment. It's like, hey, stop just making people happy and actually teach them proper jujitsu because if they're not, if they, because like I have one guy that just signed up for a tournament this weekend and
White
like
belt.
yeah, and like already told him not to, and like he trains really hard. He has a good heart, but like I'm worried to say the
Yeah,
least.
but who the hell is ever ready, man? That's like the other thing. It's like nobody's ever ready. And sometimes you just need that like first loss just to kind of, or maybe he'll win because it's all a matter of chance anyway.
Yep.
Just to kind of get back to like, oh, I need to work on this. Let me skip the fancy shit and go back to like close guard.
Yeah. Well, like if you've seen any of my fights and you like and I know you've seen me fight sometimes and stuff like that. Like I'm not like it's funny that I even teach fancy stuff because I don't do like I do like
You're like
base,
basic, yeah,
basic,
pressure and tripoding, and that's it. That's all
yeah,
you do.
that's it. Like that, and it worked. Like that's like it's not. It's starting to be not so successful. I used to like actually. I used to call myself like I used to be like I'm an active staller.
Hmm.
So like I've just only started to feel more confident to start pushing the pace and putting more pressure. But like if I would get up like 3 points, if I got like a takedown and an advantage, like almost
You just
passing your
chill,
guard,
close guard.
I'll chill close guard. I'll feel safe. I have a good base. That's also because I fought with a bad back. So I had a
Hmm.
sciatic nerve problem and I was still like competing. So I had to make sure that I was solid, my core was solid, and I
Hmm.
wasn't able to be mobile. So that actually taught me to feel a little bit more comfortable. But that's actually part of the problem too, where I get caught now is because I have a false sense of security inside like a close guard, thinking they
Hmm.
can't do anything. And yeah, like white belt and blue belt, you can get away with certain things. Once you start getting to purple and above, no, it's just like I found it's the game style has changed now, so I'm not able to chill anymore.
Yeah.
I have to evolve.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it is a different game because I've I fought a couple of times. I've competed a couple of times on white belt level, and that's not even jujitsu. That's just a fucking brawl. And then
It's true.
blue belt. I've done a few at blue belt, and that's more or less a brawl as well. It's like if you can get to close guard, then you start playing some jujitsu. But overall, it's literally like a fucking you know, it's whoever gets to the scramble first. That's what it
Yeah.
is. And then purple, I think, as I'm watching purple's fight, I'm like, oh shit, they're playing like single leg X. Oh shit, they're playing De La Hiva. They're playing like actual positions. So it's I think you have to get better at higher levels.
Yes, yes. Like I still use my same like all right, if I get it, if I like my whole it's the funniest thing was is the very first time that I did Worlds, um I was just coming back from my back or whatever. It was still like just starting to feel good.
You had
Um
surgery, or you just kind
I
of went away?
just well, it's just lots of stretching. It's still there. I still go see physio. So like when I ramp up my competitions and stuff, like I go physio like once a week. I'm doing stretching, in the hot tub and sauna.
Mm-hmm.
But my very first World Masters, my coach came to me and he's just like, all right, so what's and he's his name's Gringo, and he's like, what's your game plan? And his look after I said my game plan concerned me because I was just like, all right, I'm just gonna make him feel awkward. Like I'm just gonna keep it on my feet until he pulls guard, and then I'm gonna smash him. Like, and he's like, what fucking kind of game plan is that?
Mm.
Like you're not gonna try to take him down. You're not gonna do like any of the. And it's because I wasn't. I'm not confident in takedowns because of my back. I don't want someone to sprawl on me. So like I try to use I'm good at the snap down takedown. So like I just break, and then
Mm-hmm.
if I can't do that and you end up pulling, then I'm on top anyways.
Which is where you want to be.
Which is where I want to be. Like I like to be on top. I like to do like the crazy dog pass, where I'm controlling like I weave my hand in, control the pant and the collar. I like
Mm-hmm.
doing that. I like using knee cut.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then yeah, like Toriando was like a big thing for me at the beginning, but now it's mostly like pressure, knee cut, get into like half guard, and like if I can get chest to chest, I'm gonna get through. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna probably pressure you enough to get through.
Just brute
Uh,
force, baby.
yeah, just brute force. But and you know what? I don't watch my competitors fight anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I every once in a while I might look, but like I leave that up to my coach because of that tournament. I won my first match, and then my next match was against a wrestler,
Mm-hmm.
and my coach came back to me and he's like, "All right, so figure out when you're gonna pull guard."
Mm.
And like I don't pull guard. Like I don't. I to that point I've never pulled guard in a tournament setting ever, not one time.
Mm.
I and so I'm just like, okay, I'm just I saw his match and the guy pulled guard and he smashed the guy like 17 nothing.
Oh wow.
Um
This is
but
at blue, not purple.
at blue, this was at
Yeah,
blue.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so he smashed the guy and this is the guy who ended up winning the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So he went on to win the whole tournament.
This is Pans
Uh
you're talking about, or something
no,
else?
World Masters.
World Masters. Okay.
World Masters. So I saw the fight. And then my coach tells me I have to pull, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Did you not just see what happened to that guy?" That's what I'm thinking in my head. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to pull. And then he was a good wrestler. I ended up going for like a week trip. He took me the other way, took me down, got his 2 points,
Mm-hmm.
and this was the saddest part of the match because at that point I got right to close guard,
Mm-hmm.
and at that point he could not get out of my close guard. I almost swept him like 3 or 4 times. I ended up getting him into a reverse triangle and
Mm.
had him, and swept him, and like I had him turned and I was up on top and I just couldn't hold his legs over long enough to score the 2 points because that was like with like 30 seconds left and I had to like then let go of the triangle and I tried to swing to the back and I couldn't do it, but he ended up getting a penalty because he couldn't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
So if I pull guard, I win that match.
Yeah.
That guy wins the whole tournament.
Yeah, dude. I wouldn't worry about it. It's like hindsight is 20/20 all the time. It's like yeah, if only I would have done that. It's like yeah, maybe he would have done something else. Had you pulled guard.
I just would have see, but the thing is the guy that he fought was playing Spider Lasso.
Okay, because I play lasso. I like lasso.
Yeah, I play close guard. So like I like to be secure and like that. And so that being said, it's like once I pull you into close guard, if you can't stand up, you're not getting out.
Correct.
And so he couldn't stand up. I kept breaking his spot. And so like I should have taken that into consideration, the type of guard being played. Yes, you play Spider Lasso, a good wrestler is gonna stack you head over heels and pass you. But if you're in close guard, he doesn't have that option to be able to do that, right?
Right.
So that was definitely a big learning experience for me. And after that, I learned how to pull guard.
Okay, so you generally don't do you don't play guard generally. I mean you've played top obviously, and like all the matches I've seen you in, you're the top player. You're like pressure in and so how do you sort of separate the difference between being a specialist in one specific way all the way through, or being kind of a generalist across all disciplines? I try to be more of a generalist. Like that's how I am generally in life. I'm not like I'm a jack of all trades, but really master of none. But I'm good enough in all the trades to be able to be competent and have intelligent conversation with people all across a broad spectrum, rather than be like the scientist that does like one particular fucking discipline of like bioscience, but then can't talk to anybody else.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny. So I became that. So this game style is because of my back. I couldn't play the bottom, so I wasn't able to. Like for me to be able to keep training, competing, I had to play the top. But that being said, like it comes back to it's funny because I just saw this in like a Instagram video, and it was like I think John Jones said it. And I don't like John Jones, but like it's just like he it's something that Bruce Lee said. It's like about like, do you want somebody that knows 1,000 techniques or someone that's done one technique 1,000 times?
That's right.
And so like yes, people know a lot, but if I know something very, very well, I'm able to execute it and try to stop it, right? And if you're able to, great, but if not, but that also being said is I've worked like the game that I fight in tournaments is not the game that I train in. So I train a lot at the bottom. But I do that as a precaution. As in, if I do get stuck on the bottom or if I do have to pull guard, I at least know what to do.
Competent enough, right?
Competent enough to like at least get myself back on top or get myself into a scramble situation where I can stand up and now we can reset the situation and then I can start attacking takedowns,
right?
Or they pull and now I'm back on top,
yeah.
Right? So
have guard to dogfight to fucking up.
Yeah,
right.
That's what it is, right? So like yeah, like so it was funny. My last tournament that I did in the gi, the day before I lost no gi because I made a mistake, and the next day I'm like I'm gonna finish this guy, And so it was best 2 out of 3 because there's only 2 of us. The first fight, I was like 2.5 minutes. I took his back and choked him out.
Hmm.
The second fight was like, all right, you know what? I have a buffer. Let's experiment. So I pulled guard, and I pulled guard like shit. And he stuffed his knee in right away, and I couldn't get my guard closed properly. And then I was like I ended up getting like a collar grip, a sleeve grip, and I went to sweep him, and I almost swept him, but he pushed back into me, and then he ended up in like 3/4 mount. And what ended up happening at that point was I was about to just like, okay, just concede. Like, I won't let him submit me, but I'll let him waste as much energy as he wants right now, and then I'll crush him again in the third match.
It's not a bad idea.
And then I had no, but I wasn't able to do that because I had my kids watching me from that I coach, and like all I hear is "Go, Coach Adam! Don't accept, go!" And it's just like literally, I actually had someone say it to me today that saw the fight. He's like, "Dude, you just like sat up and like." I just literally sat up and turned, and I got the sweep, and then when I was on top, I was just smashed for the rest of the match, and just like just stayed on, and I ended up winning the gold at that point. But that was the only time that I actually like pulled guard on purpose to try to work on like, okay, let's see. Like I like to play like De La Riva X. I like to try to work that system. I like omoplatas as well. I've been working on that. My old coach was really good at doing that. So I have like an omoplata sweep that I do so that it's like I actually did it on a super heavyweight guy at the open weight. I think it was either in New Jersey last year. Yeah, I fought a super heavyweight in open, and yeah, I omoplata swept him. Yeah,
that's the only way to do it, man. It's like you can't do anything else on big guys.
So at super heavyweights, I won't pull guard on an ultra heavyweight guy. Like you saw that fight, like because I did that once before,
and you got smashed.
Yeah, so like it was literally like I 2 hands on one, and I couldn't even move the guy's arm. Yeah, and literally I went to like spider lasso, and he kind of just reached around and like okay. And then I tried to turtle, and he ended up Kimuring me. So the one in Chicago when I was fighting, that's like
he's actually pretty good. He's from my Chicago gym.
Yeah. So that was the guy. And then so like I talked to a coach earlier. He's like, don't go down. He's like, make them have to take you down. Game plan is stay on your feet the whole entire fight. And so that was my game plan, was like have good grips and just try to stay up, because I don't want to be underneath an ultra heavy is just like there's no moving them. Like that extra 50 pounds to 70 pounds is different. It is a big difference from super heavy to ultra.
Yeah, but even super is hard. It's like anybody who's 200 and above, I have a hard time. Like I'd stay on top. I prefer not to be on the bottom of that game.
So it's funny that you say that, because with ultra heavy guys, because I have some guys at my gym, they don't stand up with me because I will stand up, and it's like
they pull.
They pull. And so like the guy that I fought in Chicago, that would have been his easiest way. Like, yes, do you have a chance of me jumping, like the chance of coming over, jumping over and being acrobatic? And maybe if I was 20 years old, but not at our age, right?
They have a better chance from the bottom than from stand-up, for sure.
Because I have to engage.
Correct. They literally can like lift and sweep, and like that's essentially it.
That could be, and that because the whole thing is like on my feet, I have my feet and I have my frames, and we're good. But once you sit down, I have to step into your guard.
Correct.
I have to engage. And as soon as I engage, now you're going to be able to use your weight better than me on my just standing up like that, right? So so the big guys, they just pull, and then now it's like okay, and then they try to do things like technically, and then if they can't do it technically, then they just turn.
Yeah, it's an interesting strategy actually you mentioned, because it's like if they try to stand, it's a stalemate, because you can stand with them all day.
Yeah,
but if they pull, you have to engage. So
I have to engage.
For any big guys listening, you got to pull.
Yeah, like so if you're because even still any big guys that are fighting like a lightweight and under, like as long as you have somewhat of a decent guard, and at your size, they're not going to be like jumping over you, at least not at our age, right? So once again, like if you're big and you're fighting in the open weight, like it's a good idea to learn how to pull, because the smaller guys have to engage, and like once you grab their he grabs your legs, that's like a toothpick to the guys, like, right?
Right.
Like it's like they can almost stand up with you, right? And then now you're on their shoulder, essentially, right? So
Correct. Leg smash to mount to arm triangle. That's the path.
yeah.
At least in our gym. I
Oh,
got a few,
really?
yeah, I got a few
Yeah.
guys who basically do that. And as soon as I start becoming more active for big guys' comfort, that's the path. It's like grab the legs, Khabib style passing, grab the back of the collar,
hmm
pull themselves up, and then head to the floor, bring my elbow up, and then fucking arm triangle. That's the path.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a guy that does that all the
Yeah.
time.
So are there having done so many competitions? Are there like little truths you pick up, kind of like that? Like if you're a big guy, you got to pull guard because then you're forced to engage. These little like gems that you're willing and open to share with people from competing so much.
um,
Like, what's the secret?
what's the secret?
What's
Time on
this?
the mat. There's
Uh,
like time on the mat. Like that's just it. Like it's so funny because I do like I have guys that come into the gym and they're like, oh, so and I like and it's they're looking for like a secret, and I'm just like, guys, there's no secret. It's just time on the mat. Just um, but watching lots of video, and so I'm a visual learner. So that would be my secret. My secret weapon is like watching people and taking out of everyone's games.
hmm.
So like I try to see what works for everyone and then try to incorporate in what I that's my secret gem, what I try to do. But also don't ever as for tournaments, do your game. Like
Hmm.
don't ever and that's like and that's why I don't even look at it like I used to look at like people's films and stuff like that, but I once again like I don't watch their matches because like I don't care what you're going to do. You do your game. So that's one thing that I would say is like people need to don't worry about what your opponent can do to you. If you can do what you can do, then just that's worry about that.
Yeah, I think you also get more anxious by watching other people. Like the more you see, the more the shit gets in your head, especially if you're already kind of an overthinker, let's say.
Yep.
You tend to just overthink all of that and not ending up playing your own game and sort of trying to figure out what your counter is to their game. And you don't actually know their game with you until you're in the match.
You know, I have actually found that that's I do that a lot with higher belts that I roll with. I like wait for them. And I'm just like, why am I waiting for a black belt to do something? Like
Mm.
when they grab me, I'm in trouble. Right?
Hmm.
Like you don't wait for them to like it's like what you do with lower belts, right? Okay, I'll let them get to De La Hiva to see if I can get out of it. Well, you shouldn't do that with higher belts. Like there's no waiting, right? So that's kind of what I've learned with at least in training is no matter what it is, always just implement your game style. It doesn't matter who's across from you. Don't worry about what they're going to do. Just try to do what you can do to the best of your ability. And if it doesn't work, then you have to figure out why it didn't work and then fix those mistakes.
Yeah, or run with what you get at that point, but like ultimately engage with your own plan in mind, and then see what happens from that point on. It's actually a great strategy for like everything else. It's like I remember back in the day, reading a lot of books on like how to start a business and doing a lot of blogs and stuff, and it's like all the theory is great, but it's just like watching rolling footage. It, it's only relevant as far as the footage goes. You have to execute and you have to come in and get stuff done and just roll with the punches essentially.
I agree.
Yeah, interesting. All right, what's next for the rest of the year? I mean, how many? I know you're doing a tournament this weekend. We talked about that. It's a
Yeah.
super fight. I think we actually talked about that before we hit record. So you
Yeah.
wanna you wanna come back to that? What are
Yeah.
you doing?
Okay. So this Friday I have a super fight. So it's a local event, and so it's actually like they're doing a lot of like kickboxing and boxing, and then I guess in between those matches they're gonna have grappling events too. So I have a couple guys from my gym that are fighting for the first time in their first boxing and kickboxing, and so just as like I was gonna go anyways, and I'm like, all right, just to be a little bit more supportive. Um, the promoter sent me a list of possible guys they were looking for grappling matches. I saw something that interested me, so I'm like, all right, I'll do it. So I have the super fight this Friday that I'm looking forward to in the gi. And then after that, I'm right back to no-gi training because I have no-gi worlds in December. And the guy that beat me in pans at blue belt is there.
Oh, is that
So
right?
yeah,
How many people in the bracket?
there's only 4 right now.
Oh, so that's not too bad.
No, so there's only 4, including me. And I want to fight that guy again because throughout all my training, there's only been one person that has beaten me more than once.
And he's
So
the guy.
like, no. He hasn't. So like that in my head, it works in my favor. I'm like, all right, I made the mistake. I know what he's gonna do. I know how he fights, and now I'm gonna beat him. So that's the way that I look at it. The guy that I lost to twice was when I fought when I had the back injury, and we were both lightweight at the time at blue belt.
Mm-hmm.
He beat me, and then we just fought again in open weight. I've moved down to featherweight, and he's moved up to middleweight.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, he ended up beating me again a couple weeks ago, or in September. That was the Toronto Open. So I fought him in the Toronto Open in the semifinals. So
he's a local guy?
He's from, somewhat. He's in Ottawa. He's in the same province, but it's about 4 hours away.
Got it. And so do you generally see the same people throughout the same competition circle? Is it like, it's basically once you're in there, it's the same faces?
It is, and it was to the point that it was hard for me to one of the reasons, and this, I don't want to sound like conceited or cocky or whatever, but one of the prime reasons why I started doing a lot more IBJJF events is because I couldn't get guys at the time to fight. I'm thrifty, we'll say. So as soon as the tournament goes out, I'm registering right away because I want to save money, right? I don't want to have to spend the extra $30, $40, $50 just
For sure.
if I know I'm competing, save the money and that's it, right? So my name's one of the first names out there, and so it was hard for me to get fights. There was maybe one guy or maybe two,
Really?
Yeah.
To me, it would feel like a challenge. It's like, look, I already lost to this guy 4 other times. Might as well figure this shit out.
So one guy I beat 3 times in a tournament, and then we fought. He was actually my first super fight, and then I fought him in the super fight and then beat him again. So there has been one guy that I've fought 4 times. But yeah.
What would be your advice to him? How does he beat you?
How does he beat me? More time on the mat.
Yeah, is that all it is?
I don't know. I don't want to sound I don't think he can. I don't it's I know I get better every time I train. So it's, unless you're training more than I am,
yeah,
it's going to take a mistake. And mistakes happen. Don't get me wrong. Jiu-jitsu, it's a funny sport, or I'm tired, anything can happen. So, but once again, I'm confident as well. And I just don't see it happening.
I got it.
Yeah.
Cool. It's fine. It's just, it's hard to do because it's if you're the guy that manages the gym, you obviously live in the gym. So you're doing 2-3 classes a day. And somebody who's essentially not a hobbyist, but, to some degree, a kind of a loose competitor. I'm a loose competitor, I had a job, I got a family. It's I don't live in the gym. I like jiu-jitsu, but it's it's not my life. Yep. And so to you, I think that's kind of your life to some degree. You're all in, dude. And so it's very difficult to come in and sort of find ways around that, because it's possible that there, people like that don't have a chance against guys like you. And so then maybe the advice is just be okay with what it is. It's just, even if you lose, maybe you fight a better game than you fought last time. And that's your win. So I think you have to just outline your wins better. Maybe it's not beating the guy. It's maybe you didn't let him pass this time, but you just lost to a sweep.
So you know what? That's an amazing way of looking at it, because that's the way I tell beginners to kind of look at the game as well. So if you come in and you're tapped out 7 times, your goal next time, only get tapped out 6 times.
Correct.
So it's look at micro things that you're doing better as an improvement, and don't expect it just to happen overnight. And that's another reason why I'm so hard on myself. When I lose, because just like you said, like there's not necessarily, I don't necessarily do 3 classes, but like I'm around it all the time.
all the time. Yeah.
I have access to it all the time. Like legitimately, the guys that I train with are some of the best guys. They place at all the major tournaments for every level, whether it be blue, purple, at adult level. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not even like and these are the guys that I have the luxury to train with, right? And even the masters that I do, the guys that are black, like they're winning their events too. So like I do have a lot of people around me and systems in place that allow me to stay ahead of the average person, right? So it's like it would be hard for them to catch up,
For
because
sure.
I do have those advantages.
Yeah, and I think you got to outline your wins, and the same goes for the gym too. It's like whenever I roll with higher belts, purple and brown and black, and guys that are bigger than me, it's like I used to get frustrated. I'm like, man, like maybe I'm not doing something right to be able to fucking at least do anything against this brown belt, for example, who's like allegedly older than me and smaller than me, or at least my size. But then I started outlining a different path to the win. Maybe it's not getting submitted via this one specific thing that he specializes in. Or with guys that are bigger, I'm just getting them to react because I'm passing the guard and I'm running faster. And so maybe I don't win, but I still win.
Yep. It's funny you say that, because one of the guys that I train with, and this is going to sound like horrible, but my objective when we roll is to pull guard.
Mm-hmm.
So
Before him?
no, to pull guard.
Uh-huh.
And not just land on my ass, because what happens is he's so good at his body awareness and be able to control his body. So I have grips, and I go to put my foot back or foot up on his hip, and he steps his leg all the way back, so there's nothing for me to put my foot on, and I fall down, and then he passes right away. Like that happened to me probably like 10 training sessions in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Till like all right, my goal is just pull guard. Just pull guard. Like if you can pull guard, then that's my win. Which is kind of horrible, but it's just like you say, like there's certain people that are just so good that it's like you have to take the small wins and just keep adding to that. It's like, okay, now you're able to pull guard. All right, now try to sweep him. Okay, now you're able to sweep him. Okay, you pull guard. Now you're able to sweep him. Now let's start attacking and stuff like that. And like eventually, like they start to catch it. It starts to even out.
Yeah, for sure. And that creates another problem, because if you're always competing against yourself and not other people, you're ultimately your own biggest critic, right? Like, how do you reconcile that? Because that feels almost like a more impossible win. Sometimes it's a hard thing to do.
It is. I'm a sore loser, so like it's yeah. Like I don't like to lose, so like I don't reconcile it very well.
How do you end up not beating up yourself more than you have to?
So that's something I constantly work on right now. So my former coach, like he's always used to say to me, he's like, "You're so inappreciative. You don't appreciate you don't appreciate like," because I've talked to him, I've shared my story with him, so he knows like where I was, and like at one point, like I know I didn't say this, but like I lived in a shelter at one point for a period of time, just as I was getting my life back on track and learning how to live again. So he would tell me that I'm not appreciative when I lose, because I would literally sit there and I'd be like a spoiled little kid and be like swearing at, like, not in public. I was in Chicago that one day when I lost against the ultra heavy. I was pretty pissed out loud, but normally
it was close.
it was normally I'm quiet about it, and I'm just talking to my team, and I'm just like, oh, I can't believe I lost. I'm like, oh, I suck, and like I have to not, like, I'm very hard on myself. So that is definitely something that I'm working on. I don't know. There's no quick fix for that for me personally. It was just something that I have to be better at accepting, like, all right. But it's because it's back to my training. I don't feel like it's almost a false confidence. I don't feel that people are on my level because of the training that I'm able to do. So when I do lose, I am that hard on myself. And then it also brings back to, like, I'm a teacher. So when I lose, it's like, I'm also, there's an insecurity there that now my students won't listen. They're like, well, why am I going to listen to him? He just lost. When in fact, it's a totally different thing. It's like, wow, he just went and fought.
It's the opposite. I find that it's the opposite, actually. You're better off basically showing people that you're not necessarily a constant winner, but that when you do lose, you take that in context and not out of context. You're better off basically showing that you're more human, because everybody loses in something. It's like
Mhm.
you might be, world masters champion, but you might have other issues in your life, because life is just sort of so vast, and there's a lot of wins in one place and a lot of losses at the same time in others. And so if you constantly beat yourself up, that also does nobody any good, especially yourself, because you kind of burn yourself into the ground. And like, what the hell's the point of that?
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely that's something that I'm focusing on fixing, because I also want to be a good role model. Like, I don't want the kids to see me be a poor sport, right? They
Mm-hmm.
don't want to. I don't want anyone to see me, because then because I'm a representation of my gym as well, right? Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
the manager, I'm a coach, and that's something that I always need to think about as well. Because when you're at tournaments, you're not, like, you are fighting for yourself, but you're not. Like, in reality, you're not. You're part of a team. You're part of a greater thing. So like, your bad behavior looks bad on your teammates. Like, it's so like.
I think it's also better, in my opinion, like, and I've sort of lived my life by this theory that you're better off playing the long game than the short game, because I'd rather get invited to participate regardless of whether I win or lose, than just win, because the participation is what matters, not the winning. Because, at the end of the day, you probably look at that box full of gold medals from all the tournaments from the past years, and it's just a box of medals.
Yep. Yeah. No, it is too. Like, yeah. So like, but the box of medals creates a false sense of like achievement. It's not maybe
Mm-hmm.
a false sense of achievement, but a false confidence, because you know what, like you say, at any like, you can't win everything. So like, I almost want to put them away. Like, I don't.
I know, it's a gift and a curse, huh?
Yeah.
A good one, though.
It is. I had some, like, the past year and a half. I've had a couple good streaks where it was like 6 gold medals in a row, and then a silver, and then another. Yeah, so like, I've had a good couple streaks, but um, yeah, it's all. I still think I suck, and I still think I have so much
Nah,
to learn. So
nah, you gotta stop that shit. I mean, I remember when, the fight started and you had the collar, and I was like, oh shit, this dude is strong. And so you had a solid game, and don't be too hard on yourself.
thank.
I think the losses also make the man, not necessarily the wins.
You know what? It's how you deal with the losses. It's how you deal with the losses that determines you. So, but I'm good at putting on a good face. Like, so like, I had it because we had a comeback fight. I
Mm-hmm.
had one at a tournament. So where I lost in the first. So what happened is the guy passed my guard,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew, and I knew I was losing the match, and so I said to myself, I knew I was gonna have to fight the next guy
Mm-hmm.
to get back to the final. So I kind of just like did whatever. He ended up getting a choke and submitting me, and I was just like, I was content, and because I made a mistake in the match that gave
Mm-hmm.
him the advantage. And then I went out, won the next fight, and then my coach told me what I did wrong, and then I smashed the guy in the final.
Mm. That's
So
great.
it's so it was a matter of like, I accepted my loss, which was hard for me to do, but I accepted it. I listened to the feedback, and then like, I was able to implement the feedback like right away. So
That's awesome, man. So what's next for you? I mean, it sounds like you got jujitsu under control. What else you're working towards? Give me like next year full of goals. What are your goals
next
for next year?
so next year, obviously I want to compete. It's like with jiu-jitsu, I want to compete more. I want, like, so I've been talking, like, so I'm the manager of the gym, and so like, ideally, like, to keep growing this gym and then open up another location where I'm a partner.
Hmm.
So rather than just being the worker bee, I want to be like, that's something that, so that's like something I'm looking at. Um, I'm also looking at, like, I'm looking for someone to like maybe potentially run tournaments and stuff like that. Like, I
Hmm.
want to run a tournament, or at least I want to run a show out of my gym and stuff. I've been like contemplating doing that for a while, and I just need to pull the trigger. I'm like, oh, I do it, and I have things like relatively set up, and then I let life get in the way. And so that's something probably that I want to do next year for sure, is like have a show at my gym and like some super fights and stuff. And then also next year I plan on actually fighting, like me either doing an MMA or a boxing match.
Okay. You
So
you do boxing and Muay Thai on the side or something, or you?
I do boxing right now, and then I take the MMA class. My legs and everything are so like tight
Hmm.
that I can't kick. I make a joke like kicking's not good for me. So like I do the boxing, and I figure if I do an MMA class, like amateur MMA, my jiu-jitsu and boxing will be enough to I'll be good enough at that point to compete.
Oh, that's great. That's
So
awesome, man.
that's the next like for next year. That those are like a couple of the goals: a show, a fight, and then go back to Worlds and maybe win.
Your mouth to God's ears, as they say.
Yes, sir.
At the end of the show, I typically ask everybody to recommend a book. You have a book recommendation?
A book recommendation.
Anything you've read recently or even a long time ago that you felt warm and fuzzy inside enough to tell me about it?
So it's I actually a friend of mine that I know, she just put out a book.
Hmm.
So she just, and it's kind of like it's a poetry book, and it's not something that I'm like really in like normally would be into or anything like that, but it's basically made up of like poetry that she's created over the years and of like things that have happened to her and stuff. So it's like a story of her life kind of thing. And it's just like some things are relatable. So that's something that I would definitely recommend. Let me look the name up right now because it's so horrible that I.
Is it on Amazon?
It is on Amazon. It's on Amazon right now.
Sweet. We're going to put it in the show notes too.
Okay.
And I'm going to write it down.
So it's called Moments of Impact
By
Sonia. I'll send you Amelia. Sonia Amelia. I'll send you the spelling. I can send you a link too if you.
Perfect. Moments of Impact by Sonia Amelia.
Yeah, so that's that. But it's funny because I'm not much of a book guy. Like I don't read, so that's why it's like that would be the only thing I could really recommend. The only other book I've ever read really in my life was To Kill a Mockingbird, and I read that like 4 times like grade 9, 10, 11, and 12 to do a book report. But I have a favorite movie.
What is it?
And I think it's actually kind of relatable. And not relatable, but I think everyone should watch it. It's called The Breakfast Club. And it's an 80s movie. But I think all kids need to realize it because obviously the terms have changed and stuff. But I think it's a good movie that kids could to watch. To like, hey, you know what? Everyone deals with the like whether you're into sports or you're into like gothic stuff or you're like whatever they're into now. It's like everyone feels the same. So like internally, like there's insecurities, and it's like, and every person is a little bit of everything as well, right? So it's like, you know what, you might not be a varsity sports person, but you like sports in general, right? So like there's a little piece of all type of people in, like, if that makes sense. I don't know if that actually makes so like. You could be a little bit of a geek or a nerd and a sport and like you could have a little piece of all those types of personalities in you, and people don't realize that because they're put into like just one spot, right? So that movie kind of like for me kind of like just is like, hey, you know what, open my eyes to, hey, you know what, we might seem to be going through different lives, but everyone has shit going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would second that. And I would say that while the local goals may change from human to human, I think the mega goal is the same. And the mega goal is a little better than yesterday, and competing against yourself and nobody else, and constant forward progress.
I totally, and like the competing about yourself, like that's what I tell all the kids in the gym, because obviously kids are competitive, and so like they come up and they're like, oh, I beat this person, I beat that person. I'm like, I don't want to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
Are you better today than you were yesterday? And they're like, yes. I'm like, that's all I want to know.
That's all that matters. That's right.
That's all that matters. If you're better today than you were yesterday, then that's all that matters.
That's a great place to stop. Thank you, Adam.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Take care.